Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1963A, and today's date is September 6, 2019, and the title of the episode is Right on Schedule, Recession Canceled, Global Trade Reset in Progress. Now, before we get started, I wanted to talk about protecting yourself. Nothing invokes full-scale panic like Wall Street panicking, but quietly, secretly, U.S. corporate insiders, they're preparing. What are they doing? Well, they call it financial prepping, being cautious, protecting their assets, and all sorts of other fancy explanations, but make no mistake, this is controlled panic. CNN reported $600 million of stocks has been sold each day in August. This only happened previously before the 2008 crash. Insider selling has topped $10 billion for 5 months straight. Meanwhile, gold is rocketing and demand is at a 3-year high according to the World Gold Council. The rise in the price of gold and silver shows no sign of slowing down anytime soon, and investors seeking shelter for the stocks they cashed in are piling into precious metals, which have risen by 32% since August last year. Precious metals, gold, silver, as an IRA or 401k rollover will keep you safe and help you ride out the latest storm, as they always have done. But you need to act fast. Call Noble Gold right now at 877-646-5347 and ask them to help you move your money to safety. Or you can hit the link below and someone will contact you and you'll get the free gold and silver investment guide that has been downloaded over 50,000 times. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, don't you just love it when a plan comes together? And that is exactly what we're seeing happen right now. The entire economic plan is completely coming together. Right now, remember, this is all statistical data. We discussed this many times before. This is a central bank economy. Trump and the patriots, they're trying to keep this system alive long enough to transition us out of this old central bank system, which is imploding, into a people's economy. And what do they have to do this? Well, they have to drive the central bank economy to the edge of the cliff. They need to keep the illusion alive, statistically, that the economy is fantastic. Trump needs to bring back the jobs, needs to create jobs, needs to bring back manufacturing, corporations, needs to get rid of the trade deals, needs to do all of this while battling the central bank, the deep state, the globalists. Think about this for a second. But right now, the job numbers were released, and the job numbers look fantastic. What are they? Well, jobs increased by another 130,000, much more than expected. Unemployment remained the same at an historical low at 3.7%. Now, according to data released this morning by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Trump has added more than 6 million jobs during his term. The same cannot be said for Obama, as during the same time he lost 2.8 million jobs. Obama was so bad at creating jobs that by the end of his second term, he said that jobs were not coming back. And there was a video saying, what? There's no way he can bring back these jobs. They're not coming back to the U.S. What, does he have a magic wand or something? And Trump responded, yes, I do have a magic wand. And I figured out how this manipulated system works. And now I have complete control over this. Overall, Trump has gained nearly 9 million more jobs than Obama in their respective first 2.5 years in office. Trump needs to do this. This is why you see everything going on right now. And this is why the globalists, the central bank, they don't like this. Remember, their entire plan was completely the opposite of what Trump is doing. I mean, really, think back to when Obama was president and we were battling the Islamic State in Syria. And every time the U.S. bombed the in Syria, the Islamic State gained ground. And nobody could understand this. How is this possible? Are they this good? No. This was allowed. Think about the U.S. with the economy. What were they doing? They were moving everything out of the country. This is why jobs continually decreased. When you move manufacturers, companies, and you make it very difficult for companies to operate, what happens? The whole thing doesn't work. Now, if you add in the central bank, it's a complete and utter disaster. And if you add debt on top of that, forget about it. That's where we are today. And Trump is reversing all of this, and they don't like it. Trump tweeted out the following. I think President Trump is set in his ways because he doesn't see any weakening. I mean, look at the joblessness report today. What I'm surprised at is how strong the consumer is. I think the Chinese need it a deal more than we do. It's statistical. I just think that our economy is very strong. If the Fed would lower rates to where the bond market says they should be, then I really wouldn't worry about a recession. The economy is great. The only thing adding to uncertainty is the fake news. He continued to let everyone know that the tariffs are working. The U.S. economy is fantastic, and there is no recession. China is eating the tariffs, billions pouring into the U.S., targeted patriot farmers getting massive dollars from the incoming tariffs, good job numbers, no inflation. China having worst year in decades, talks happening, good for all. Now think about it. The mainstream media was out there because they lost complete control of the central bank system. The central bank was no longer going to raise rates in the year of 2019 to crash the economy in 2020. So the deep state, the central banks, they decided, hey, you know what we can do? We can tell everyone that a recession is coming, and everyone will believe this, and we will create the recession out of thin air. Well, they knew they only had a certain period of time. They knew that once Trump gets those rate cuts and starts stimulus, that recession plan goes down the tubes. And there's nothing they can do. This is why they started it up. And they knew that there was going to be a point in time when they were going to have to backtrack. Well, guess what? That time is now. They are backtracking. Why? Because guess what the Fed is about to do? We already know that behind the scenes, they already started stimulus. They already know that there's no recession coming. Because in the beginning stages of all this, the economy is going to take off. Let's look at what the mainstream media is saying. This is out of Forbes. The Trump 2020 economic recession isn't happening. This is out of the Washington Post. Why the U.S. won't be in a recession in 2020. This is out of New York Times. A recession isn't inevitable. The case for economic optimism. Why all of a sudden they're saying, hey, I guess a recession isn't coming. And they're backtracking. All the indicators they were talking about, everything that they were telling us, completely fake, phony, and false. Remember, this is a manipulated economy. It's an illusion. Trump has the wand. He's controlling everything. Remember, optics are very important. Why do you think he continually hits at the Fed? Why does he call out Powell? Because it can't look political. Trump tweeted out the following. I agree with Jim Cramer. The Fed should lower rates. They were way too early to raise and way too late to cut. A big dose quantitative tightening didn't exactly help either. Where did I find this guy, Jerome? Oh, well, you can't win them all. Remember, optics are very important. And Fed Powell was out there, and he was asked the question, are politics playing a role in your decision to cut rates? And he's saying that, nope, that politics are playing absolutely no role in an interest rate cut decision. Think about this for a second. The whole thing has been set up. And what are we going to see? We're going to see a rate cut. They're already starting the narrative. They're already laying the groundwork for all of this. They're letting us know that the economic indicators, they're looking this way, and this is why we can justify doing a rate cut. This is all part of the show. This is optics. This is out of Market Watch. The weaker than expected August job report makes it all but certain the Federal Reserve will cut its benchmark interest rates by a quarter point at their meeting in 2 weeks. It's right on schedule, everybody. This was planned from the beginning. Go back to Q's posts. Q told us in the year of 2019, the Fed will no longer raise interest rates. They'll freeze them and they'll start cutting them. This is exactly what we see happening. The Fed is doing exactly what Trump and the patriots want. But don't tell anyone. Remember, it's not political. The mainstream media knows this. This is why they're backtracking on the recession in 2020. They know once these rate cuts occur and stimulus is announced and the public understands what's going on, the recession will not happen. We're going to get that shot of adrenaline. It'll boost the markets. The economy, statistically, is going to look incredible heading into the 2020 election. Think about that. Who's controlling the economic narrative? Trump. Now let's talk about the global trade reset. Now, the mainstream media, the central bank, the IMF, all of it, they're trying to convince us that there's a trade war. They're trying to convince us that tariffs aren't good. They're trying to convince us that this is a terrible idea that Trump is doing with China. This shouldn't be happening. Now, remember, there's many different goals associated with this. I do believe that Xi and Putin, they're working together on this. I do believe the push is to get the companies out of China. Remember, their plan was to shift everything away from the United States. Trump right now is shifting it back. And he needs to reset the global trade policies. How do you do that? Well, if they were shifting everything to China, and many of the countries out there, and China's a manufacturing powerhouse, and many of the countries were purchasing from China, and China was purchasing from other countries, what do you need to do? You need to stop this. So this is the other part of the tariffs with China. Now, the mainstream media, they don't want everyday Americans to understand this process that Trump is bringing us through, this global trade reset. They're not going to be calling it that. Because if they did, everyone would start to catch on and say, hey, now I understand how these globalists, the central banks, how they were removing U.S. wealth from the United States and placing it in other areas, and how they were stripping the United States and trying to bring it down to a third world country. Right now, Reuters is reporting on a significant drop in German industrial orders, and they specifically point to diminished orders from the UK, small part, and China, big part, as the cause. However, the analysis stops at the part where China's lack of industrial orders is the leading contribution to retraction in the German export sector. What the financial analysis does not approach is the reason why Chinese orders for German industrial goods have dropped. Trump's trade reset has stopped a big amount of U.S. wealth from arriving in Beijing. Simultaneously, Beijing is countering Trump's tariffs by devaluing their currency. The rebound economic impact is doubled. China has less income now, less value within their own currency. Where does this dynamic show up? Anytime China is going to buy something, guess what? They have less funds to do it. The value of their currency has dropped because China devalued their currency, which means that their exports are cheaper. And at the same time, it makes any of their imports more expensive. So China buys less. And that now exhibits in lower purchases of German stuff. See what Trump is doing here? All of those nations who are counting on Chinese purchases are now going crazy. Remember, they set this up on purpose. Trump is removing what they did, which destroys the globalist trade system. Remember, everything was being shifted away from the United States. Trump has reversed the dynamic. We are repatriating our national wealth through new trade policies, and will pay for any incurred foreign debt by expanding our own economy and controlling our own destiny. This is all being done on purpose. Right now, Trump is resetting the global trade system. And the mainstream media, the economists, nobody wants to talk about it, because then people would understand what was going on in the past and how they were removing the wealth from the U.S. Trump has reversed it all, and he's bringing it back here to this country. Right on schedule. Everything is going as planned. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.